Welcome back, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast, the college offseason podcast, where we have a lot to talk about today. In case you've been living under a rock, one of the biggest coaching firings has happened in the form of James Franklin getting fired from Penn State. And Matt, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Firings like James Franklin, they're always weird, man. During his tenure, they were good. But the
hmm
problem is when you teeter between good and great, people start to expect more from you.
Yep.
Maybe it's not having a losing record versus top 10 and top five teams. Maybe it's beat Ohio State and Michigan every now and again. Maybe it's you even win the Natty. You can't hover in the same spot for too long, especially not in today's game, which I think is very unfortunate, fortunate or unfortunate, depending on your perspective. But overall, Matt, what were your thoughts on the firing?
Well, before we get to any of that, I would like to say, Les, that I would greatly appreciate it if you would either wear the hat the right way or not at all. Thank you. Thank you, Les. See, people, he does listen to suggestions on TikTok. But when it comes to getting back to the point at hand, the firing, yeah, it wasn't more that it like caught me off guard. I think after the UCLA loss, the writing was kind of on the wall. I just expected it in December, not in the middle of October. Because this year of all years, it's kind of like you said with expectations. This wasn't even like a normal year for Penn State. I mean, last year they did go to the Big Ten championship. They make the playoffs, they beat SMU, and then inevitably it ends the same way it always does for Penn State. I'm sorry, Penn State fans. That's just how it is. But this year, it was just different. Your top three quarterback prospect is back. You've got two of the best running backs in the country. You've got one of the best defenses in the country as well. And then you've got what is now shaping up to be one of the wide open years where nobody looks great. Nobody looks super dominant except possibly Ohio State, and you've got a shot to not only show them by beating them finally with your pro quarterback, but even maybe, win the Big Ten because, like I said, nobody seems impenetrable this year. There is no team that sticks out as being like, oh my God, yeah, that they're going to be in the playoff final. They're unbeatable. The number two team in the country just lost last night. And it feels like that's happened multiple times. And even the teams that are there just don't feel like the usual, oh, yeah, that team's going to barnstorm everybody they play. And so you combine that with a disappointing loss again to a top five team on your wideout in overtime, follow that up with just a mind blowingly weird loss to UCLA, and then the Northwestern game happens and the wheels totally fall off. I mean, I understand. And usually this grants you some clemency when you lose your like all world quarterback for the year, but it just didn't happen. That was just like the final straw. It's like, okay, not only has our quarterback been tanking his draft stock ever since he came back, but it's just not working out. It's just not working out. If it's not happening this year, it will never happen. And I think that's the realization that the people at Penn State came to is that if it's not happening this year, it's never going to happen. And that's when it's like, okay, well, then we just need to start all over, figure out who the next coach is, and, figure it out. I mean, I, and I know that like Ryan wouldn't remember this because he was like a zygote when this was going on. But
Ooh.
it's easy to forget that James Franklin's been there like over a decade now, in the wake of one of the worst scandals in the history of sports. He came into this thing from Vanderbilt and ended up doing that. And it's like if it hasn't happened with the many, many seismic changes we've seen in like I can't remember if it's 12 or 14 years he's been there. It's just never going to happen. And I think that's the realization everyone came to. It's like, especially in a year like this, when all the stars were perfectly aligned. You had Ohio State with like a unproven freshman quarterback. You had Oregon, who knows what they're going to be. They're always good, but are they going to be phenomenal, or are they just going to be Big Ten championship
And
caliber?
they had an unproven quarterback as well.
Yeah, and Dante Moore. So it's like if it's not going to happen this year, I think they just realized, man, we just need to cut our losses, pay the $59 million, and see if we can get a guy in here who maybe just brings a change a breath of fresh air to a program that didn't really need it. But when you're Penn State, you have different expectations than some of the schools we're going to be talking about later. And I think everyone just came to the conclusion like it didn't happen this year. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. It's just time to accept that we've reached the end of the road, as boys and men would sing, and it's time to move on, try and find someone else.
And all going back to how this is all connected, usually when you make a firing like this, where you're stuck in the good, not great area, and you do decide to start over and start a new regime, it either goes one of two ways. It either goes really good, and we've seen examples of that, like when Georgia went from Mark Richt to Kirby Smart. But we've
Yep.
also seen examples where it goes really bad, when Texas went from Mac Brown to Charlie Strong. Now, there's reasons it went like that, but where this is all connected is when Texas went from Mac Brown to Charlie Strong, James Franklin was in their coaching search. And me being a Texas fan back in those days, I actually wanted Franklin over Charlie Strong. And it was not that I didn't think Charlie Strong was a good coach. I still do believe Charlie Strong's a good coach. But where my thought process went is that Charlie Strong, being a Louisville native, you know the rumblings but behind the scenes of how he struggled to handle the Louisville boosters. If you're struggling to handle the Louisville boosters, the ones in Austin are a different animal, especially the one that he who must not be named was the lead booster back in those days. But yeah, you just saw the troubles, shaping up when Charlie Strong kind of took the job. But, one of my also biggest takeaways from this firing is if he's not careful, Steve Sarkisian might end up in the same position. Even with the back-to-back college playoff semifinal berths, even with the win at Bama, even with the Big 12 title in the last year in the conference, Texas still has a losing record against top 5 teams. Georgia, at the moment, gives them fits. And all these top-tier classes don't mean anything unless you start making a real push for a national championship, because that is the standard at Texas, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. So my question is, how long will it take before Texas gets restless with Sark the way that Penn State got restless with James Franklin? And it'll either go the Franklin route or it'll go the Ryan Day route. Because remember last year we were talking about the same thing with Ryan Day. And then another loss to Michigan. And then, of course, the narrative just explodes on social media. He can't beat Michigan. He should be fired. And all of a sudden the team just uses that as fire and pushes on for a national championship. But at some point, we're going to be asking the same question about Steve Sarkisian that we asked about James Franklin.
But let's not forget, too, 12 years for James Franklin. 12 years.
Right.
And he wasn't in the SEC where everybody all of a sudden has like at least a competent football program, or at least has one or two superstar players. This is the Big Ten, which, don't get me wrong, still has superstar players, still has a lot of really good teams, but also has, Northwestern and Rutgers. In the SEC now, even Vanderbilt out of nowhere is favored at home against LSU, which
for the first time since 1978, which is insane.
Which seems like a very foreign concept, yeah. So I mean, I think that if he gets 12 years, I know Texas is a different beast. I know that. I know the fans are different, the boosters are different, but Penn State fans are pretty rabid as well. And if Steve Sarkisian keeps making the playoff, he's going to be okay, at least for a few more years. I mean, he'll probably, at the worst case, maybe 3 years from now, we're having this discussion seriously, unless something really bad happens. So I think there's a little bit of leeway there that maybe if James Franklin got leeway, I too think that Steve Sarkisian will get some leeway, especially with the recruiting classes Texas will bring in, because hope will spring eternal that like this one will be the one that delivers like what Arch Manning was supposed to be. It's still too early to tell with him, let's be honest. If he delivers being like Peyton Manning the minute he steps on the field, there's always going to be hope for Texas because Texas is football, let's be honest.
And they got another tier class coming in next year. So, I mean, we'll see. But moving on to the next question I have for both me and Matt, because ironically enough, both Matt and I's teams' head coaches are mentioned in the open vacancy that is Penn State football. And Matt, I'm going to start with you because you obviously have the bigger name coach of the two of us at the moment. Kurt Signetti was mentioned as a possible replacement as the next Penn State coach. Now, obviously, he just signed that 8-year, $92.8 million extension. That equates to 11.6 million a year, which makes him, sorry, the third highest paid coach in college football. And now he also has released a press conference saying he wants to retire in Bloomington. Even before all of that, what were your thoughts about Kurt Signetti being named in the potential Penn State football head coach search?
I mean, it just makes sense. The guy's coming off the biggest win of his coaching career. He's from Pennsylvania. It just makes sense, when there's all the hot coaching commodities are going to be listed for a job like Penn State because Penn State is one of those top jobs. It may not be S tier, it's definitely A tier when it comes to that stuff. So it's like, yeah, it makes sense that Kurt Signetti will be mentioned in any upper echelons team coaching search because for God's sake, he's doing things at Indiana, who didn't even have a football program by my recollection until a year ago. So it's pretty impressive. It's beyond impressive. And then the second thought is, yeah, Penn State, barring like the boosters at IU really getting it together, and they did, is it like, oh yeah, that's probably going to be a really tough job to pass up. And apparently, and it still may be, it still might not be the job to pass up. I don't know. 11.6 million is a lot of money. It's only year 2 of his regime in Indiana. It's a lot of money. College football is weird, but when that happened, it's kind of like, okay, maybe he is going to stay at least for another year or two, at least, because when you're getting that much money, what's the point of going somewhere else? But like I said, college sports very weird. But I mean, it just makes sense. The dude's a Pennsylvania native. The dude's coming off the biggest win of his career. He beat a team that Penn State could not beat pretty physically. So, it proves he's got what it takes. He's kind of got like the old school attitude that they kind of like in Happy Valley with their linebackers and all that stuff, that grit. So, I mean, it just seemed like a good fit. I mean, if there was anywhere he was going to go, that just seemed like a really good fit.
And it's really impressive what Kurt Signetti's been able to do because, I mean, if you look at, the recruiting rankings of the players he's brought in at Indiana, I mean, we're talking 3 stars, 4 stars, and, there's nothing wrong with that. But
Right.
when you see a team in today's day and age competing at the level that they're competing, I mean, you're expecting several 5 stars here and there, but
Yeah.
he's not. And now with this revitalization of the IU football program, makes you wonder is he going to be able to bring in these 5-star recruits? I mean, is he going to be able to develop players and prove that he can get players drafted?
Right.
I mean, that's going to be the only question. But I mean, at the same time, if he's developing 3 and 4 stars and they go on to get drafted, I mean, it starts begging the question like how much more is he going to have to prove for these 5 stars to want to come
Right.
play for him?
And that's another thing too that people were talking about. It's like, first of all, I do think it's incredible. I don't know if it says more about the state of what quarterbacking is compared to where we thought it was a month ago, but the fact Fernando Mendoza is now like potentially a top 3 pick is still
Right.
like, whoa, really? But moving on from that, what people were saying too about this, a lot of the talking heads after they see that deal are like, oh, it's only year 2. Are you sure you want to back the Brinks truck up? And I'm like, it's Indiana. It's Indiana, okay? Let's say like they finish this season unbeaten, go to the playoffs, yada yada, and then he goes 6-6 for 11 years. You know what going 6-6 for 11 years at Indiana football makes you less?
J-
The greatest coach in the history of Indiana football. You can even throw a 5-7 in there, if you don't hit on their recruits. I mean, I don't think it matters for like people in Bloomington. I think they're just excited and they're getting a little spoiled, and that's scary in and of itself. But because I know what happens when you invigorate that fan base a little too much when it comes to other sports. But let's be honest here. If he goes 6-6 for 11 years, he's the greatest coach in Indiana football history. And spare me your Lee Corsos, spare me your Bill Mallory's. Those guys had good years every once in a while. They weren't consistent. If somebody goes 6-6 for 11 years in Indiana and wins a couple bowl games, you know, people will be like, well, that's just upper tier MAC levels. That's pretty much what Indiana's been its entire football existence, okay? Outside of like 1993 and 1967 and maybe 78. So, spare me that. Spare me that. If we're paying that kind of money to go 5-7, not really, to go 7-5 or 6-6, that's okay because it's Indiana. And I'd be very intrigued to see how much money Kurt Signetti has brought to IU in 2 years, as opposed to 10 years of a beloved but admittedly mediocre to poor basketball program that everyone wants to be good. And it's interesting too. When you posted that video, and all the people were commenting on it. It's like there's a little dirty secret people don't talk about when it comes to Indiana and its boosters. Indiana alumni. This was another funny thing. Midway through the week, Indiana announced they had more living alumni than Penn State. And it's like, ooh, is that some kind of weird half-assed threat? Like, oh, we've got more people to steal money. We got more people that's money from. Ooh. But like the thing about Indiana boosters that they don't tell you is like Indiana grads are all over like the Great Lakes and the Rust Belt, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit. And the thing is, they didn't get there by like being spendthrift about a football program that no one cared about until like 3 years ago. But now they've got incentive. And it's kind of like what we've been seeing in the greater scheme of college football is that like these Big Ten donors, they're not car dealerships, they're not Mattress Mac. No offense to any of those guys. These guys are like Fortune 500 CEOs and executives who have like secret mansions in the Maldives and stuff they go hide out at. They need to be convinced to care. And if you go deep enough into Indiana message boards, they willingly admit that. And now they have a reason to care. And that's where all this money's coming from. Everyone knows Mark Cuban. Nobody knows or cares about the CFO of Eli Lilly. I'm making this up off the top of my head. I don't actually know if they went to IU. Nobody knows or cares about the CFO of Eli Lilly giving them even more because he's a pharmaceutical giant. But now they have a reason to care. And I think now that they've committed to this coach with this money, that you're going to see more of like the attempts to get more of those players in, them trying to be competitive with just like straight outrageous NIL now that they have something they can buy into. Because that's been secretly one of the issues with the men's basketball program is they want to see what the Veers can do, or the Virus can do before they bring in anybody, before they get too money spend thrifty with it. So I mean that's just it. I mean we're watching somebody who's they can go 11. There is almost, and I don't mean to say this the way it's going to come out. There's almost no pressure. You just keep doing what you're doing. We were talking about James Franklin earlier. I mean, if Kurt Signetti made the college football playoff every year and didn't win, maybe wins a game every once in a while, like James Franklin did or something. Indiana fans wouldn't care. They'd be over the moon. This would be the golden decade of Indiana football, and they would be happy about it. The expectations are just different animals, totally, utterly, and completely.
And I think it's funny though because I saw where Indiana basketball had their exhibition game against Marion yesterday, and I just got to thinking, this might be the first time in a while that Indiana basketball season's about to start, and IU fans are still, more distracted by the football team.
Yeah,
But
it's weird.
it's a weird time, but I'm here for it, man. It's an exciting time. Indiana being good at football I feel like it's just good for the sport because it's something you don't see often.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a potential to have like a new blood in a big conference, which is more important now than ever because in the era of realignment, expansion, etc., we love basketball. College basketball is my favorite thing, but that's not what drives the money. That's not what drives the money. It's college football. And if you're not going college football, who's to say that the Big Ten's not like, oh, Indiana, get your ass to the MAC. You're done. And now that they're a little bit better in that, who knows where it goes. And it gives, the casual fan something to root for if they don't mind, Indiana, which I'm not saying like Kentucky fans should root for IU. Don't do that. Let the basketball rivalry permeate there. But it gives people something to look forward to, or it gives somebody a new superstar, and for the conference, that's a chance to make money.
As we transition from one historically basketball school to another historic basketball school, my Duke Blue Devils, their head football coach is also named in this Penn State coaching search, and Manny Diaz. And I'm going to be completely honest, Matt, this gives me PTSD because my first thought is, here we go again. Because history tells me, as a Duke fan, that I should be worried about Manny Diaz being linked to the Penn State job. When literally the previous Duke coach coaches 2 seasons, has success, and leaves for a school with a better football reputation and a school he was previously the defensive coordinator of, it makes you think that history might be repeating itself. Much like Mike Elko at Texas A&M, Manny Diaz was the Penn State defensive coordinator from 2023 to 2024. Like Elko, right before he went to Duke, he was at that previous school. And so, say it does happen, and Manny Diaz does take the Penn State job. Now you got to ask the question: do players like Darian Menza follow? What about Bryce Davis and the rest of that top recruiting class in Duke history? Bradley Gompers, one of the top recruits in that class. He was linked to Penn State, prior. So it makes you wonder when so many things like that add up, and it looks like history might be repeating itself. I mean, as a Duke fan, it kind of gives you a little bit of PTSD. It's like, oh gosh, here we go again. What do we got to do to be able to keep a semi-successful coach? Or do we just have to stop hiring defensive coordinators from big-time schools?
Well, Les, I got some good news for you. I would be fairly shocked if Manny Diaz was the head coach at Penn State because I really think it's going to be, and you're going to probably think this is silly, it's going to be conference on conference crime to me. I think with the second that Matt Rule did that press conference on Monday, where he's talking about how he met his wife there and how all the good memories he had there as a walk on and all that stuff, I think it's probably going to be Matt Rule leaving Nebraska unless they do something like, even if they make the playoff, honestly, I think that Penn State is going to do their best to get Matt Rule in there. And I know, like, this was my first thought when I heard it too, was like, well, isn't that the definition of insanity? Isn't Matt Rule just James Franklin from, out west? And it's
Isn't
like,
he
well,
isn't he like Walmart James Franklin? Isn't he like Big K to Coca-Cola James Franklin?
and then the more I thought about it, those are pretty accurate. But then I remembered something you mentioned earlier in the podcast, which is sometimes it just works. You know, there's just something weird about a dude who was a walk on, who like met his wife, who's known for building things. He has built programs. They maybe have not reached the levels that we assume they had. And then, of course, there's the Carolina Panthers, but we don't talk about that. We don't talk about Carolina. But, well, we will talk about Carolina a little later. Not that one. But I just think that there's something about that where, like, a dude who can build programs, get him resources like that, like not even like Temple or hell, even Nebraska can give him. I mean, Penn State, like I said, they now have the second biggest living alumni base, so that's a good place to start. You got people who are going to be hungry, and you got a guy who understands the program and has like this weird, almost like blind loyalty to it because he played for them. It may be one of those things that works, and I think Penn State is willing to take a shot on an established product who maybe wants to prove himself. This isn't like when James Franklin came up from Vanderbilt. This guy has been in multiple programs and even flamed out the NFL, and he's pretty much won at all of them. Like I said, not at the level we'd like to see, but right now Nebraska is what, 6-1. They have a star quarterback he could bring with him right away if he wanted to, and Patrick Mahomes. LOL. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is Matt Rule's moment to go back to Penn State and see what happens. And I think that might be what does happen. I'd be pretty surprised if it didn't come down, if it wasn't like even, what happened with Mark Stoops, where he was about ready to sign the contract and backed out. I would not be surprised if it got that close with Matt Rule, if
You know,
not fully committed.
me personally, I'm gonna have to slightly disagree with not that I don't think it won't happen, but I think I'm going to disagree with you in the stance that I wouldn't be surprised if it is Manny Diaz. I mean, I don't know if this is just like the horrors that I've already went through as a fan or just a bad voodoo feeling, but there's just too much similarities between what happened with Mike Elko at Duke to what could happen with Manny Diaz to where that's going to be in the back of my head. I hope it doesn't because I love what Manny Diaz is doing at Duke, but I also loved what Mike Elko was doing at Duke. So I feel like there's just too much bad juju there as to where I think that um, Manny Diaz is going to be the lead candidate. But I want to run something off of you. You know, James Franklin obviously came over from Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was surprisingly good during his tenure, and which what made him a very hot coaching commodity to begin with. Vanderbilt, fast forward a decade later, Vanderbilt's back to being good. So, what do
Mm-hmm.
you think the odds are that Penn State pursues another Vanderbilt head coach in Clark Lee?
I like Clark Lee, but this is an example of that changing landscape. If you're Penn State, rebuilding years, do they even exist anymore? Let's be honest about that. Do rebuilding years even exist anymore? Or are you just like, hey, we're going to hire a guy who's kind of an established product and go out and make all the money in the world and see what happens? And I think that's what's more likely to happen here. I mean, I love Clark Lee, but like I said, rebuilding years don't exist anymore. You want to hit the ground running as quickly as you can, especially at a program like Penn State. So no, I think they're going after an established guy, or an established meaning like a household name.
That's fair. And now that brings us to the $1 million question because we've talked about the potential replacement for James Franklin at Penn State. Now we got to go with where James Franklin could be potentially going to, be where James Franklin's next stop could be. I know he's got that interview going on right now on College Game Day, but
Yep.
if you had to pick where the best place for James Franklin to pursue his coaching career would be, where would you pick?
It's funny because this position is also controversial, but it's technically not open yet, and we all know what's going to happen there. And I think James Franklin will be the head coach at North Carolina next season.
So you don't believe the false rumors I'm hearing?
Oh, I believe all the false rumors. I think Bill Belichick is realizing now that this is horrible and hellish, and he wants to get out, especially after what happened to them last night at Cal, fumbling out the end zone with a chance to win it. To go, I think they're 2-4 now. Yeah, I think Bill Belichick wants out. I think he's realizing now that this isn't as fun as I hoped it would be. The scrutiny, he canceled that HBO thing they were doing with him, or whoever was in charge of that. I think he just wants to be done. I think he wants to go retire with his girlfriend. I think his girlfriend wants to be done. I think everybody associated with Bill Belichick is just ready to be gone. They want to leave North Carolina now. And a guy like James Franklin, who, once again, going back to that thing, a highly established product at a place that's kind of like they're not. North Carolina is a Vanderbilt, don't get me wrong. But they have a lot of donors, they have a lot of resources. They're in a conference that's not as intense as the Big Ten can be or the SEC. You've coached in two. You might as well move on to one of the fourth one and have fun with it because I think he'd enjoy being in the ACC. And I think for once, that North Carolina Duke rivalry would actually be like very competitive, on the football field too. I'd love to see Manny Diaz and James Franklin coach against one another. I think that'd be really cool. And like I said, North Carolina's got the money to get them. They've got the money to get players in there. Maybe players would be more likely to commit to a guy like James Franklin James Franklin. I think it's a good move. I think they should do it. North Carolina should hire James Franklin if when Bill Belichick is fired, leaves, etc. Plus, you'd probably rather have Keegan Michael Key around your program than like Bill Belichick's girlfriend. Come on
No, I mean, yeah, no, I'm not going to comment on that. There's a lot of things I could say, but I'm not going to comment on that. But it's funny you say that because when James Franklin got fired, of course, the buyout was $49 million. He sold his house for $3.3 million. I mean, basically made $52.3 million in a week. If it was me, I'd be chilling for a while because that's a lot. That's a lot of money.
now.
But I think, ironically enough, if he is going to get back into coaching right away, I also picked another ACC school for him to go to. And for me, I went with Virginia Tech. because I feel like that makes the most sense. They have a good football history that's in need of a floor raising. And I mean, I think they'll be okay with not beating top five teams for a while, but they're also in a similar region of recruiting that Penn State's in. So I feel like he's
Yeah.
already used to the recruiting region that Virginia Tech would be in. It's a hotbed for recruits. And again, they're a football program with a good history that's kind of been on that downward slump for a while. They're in need of that floor raising to get, just to give them some sliver of hope that they can get back to what they once were during the Beamer days. So yeah, I think Virginia Tech makes the most sense for James Franklin. But
I
we
could
just
see
hit the
that
10
too.
minute, yeah, we just hit the 10-minute mark. So we are officially going to get to the last portion of the podcast. We have four other head coaches that have been fired that we're going to talk about, and we're kind of going to do a roundtable pick'ems here. We got Mike Gundy, Trent Bray, Sam Pittman, and Brent Pry. And what we're going to ask is which one was the most surprising of getting fired, which one is the most likely to get rehired, which one is the easiest to replace, and which one is most likely to join the broadcast booth. So starting with the most surprising, Matt, which one was the most surprising?
I went with Pittman just because it's the SEC. You just want to make it to the end of the year, and the fact you put Bobby Petrino back as head coach after the motorcycle, after the neck brace, after all that good stuff. Yeah, that one just surprised me a lot that you put not even that necessarily you'd fire Pittman because we've kind of figured that's been coming, but the whole let's put Bobby Petrino back as head coach thing, even though he's a great offensive mind, he's still Bobby Petrino. Kind of surprised me.
Mine, I went with Mike Gundy because of the conference championship appearance a couple years ago. Short, sweet, simple to the point. But I guess what Matt's overall saying is Arkansas make sure Bobby Petrino stays away from the volleyball team.
Please, we can't do this again.
Which one do you think is the most likely to get rehired?
By process of elimination, I ended up with Brent Pry here. I don't know why. I think kind of he got like a raw deal at Virginia Tech. I think he'll be a coordinator somewhere else. He'll be okay.
I also went with Brent Pry. I think he's going to be back to a special teams coordinator. He is a very good special teams
He
coordinator.
is.
So I think that, some team will pick him up as their special teams coordinator. So I think he'll get rehired, probably quicker than most. Which one do you think is the easiest to replace? And I feel like we're going to have the same answer here.
I mean, when you go 5-14 at Oregon State, Trent Bray, yeah. Who else are you gonna find to replace that? I mean, that's like Indiana. You're just gonna replace 5-7 with 4-8 at the worst. So whatever.
Yeah, I went with Trent.
That's
I also went with Trent Bray because, like, what the fuck did he do there? But anyways, last but certainly not least, who is most likely to join the broadcast booth? Now, this is one where we do have a disagreement on because you've already said my choice.
Yep. I went with Mike Gundy for this one just because who wouldn't want the I'm a man, I'm 40 guy with his folksy Big 12 catchphrases in the broadcast booth at halftime. It just sounds like a great idea to me. I don't know why. It just sounds amazing.
No, no, not a bad pick, but I went with Sam Pittman because I'm just getting hella John Daly vibes with him.
He's going to wear those psychedelic pants, man. It's going to be a beautiful moment.
It's going to be awesome. That he picked up from Walmart during his time at Arkansas.
Hey, don't knock the Walmarts in Arkansas. They are something else there. I've got to be honest.
I wasn't knocking him. I'm just saying.
Just making sure you're not.
He's going to get a nice pair of psychedelic pants from Walmart.
Walmart's
he probably got for a really good price.
The ones in Fayetteville and the ones like especially up near their headquarters, they have drones, Les. I have video of me like filming a Walmart drone in Rogers, Arkansas, because I just thought it was the coolest fucking thing ever. Oh, family show. I ruined it. All right, Les, I got to step out for a minute, so I'll be back in a moment. So if you want to talk a little bit, I got to go take care of something. I saw something outside, okay?
You have sauce on the outside.
No, there's something going on outside, so I got to go check on that for a minute. I'll probably be back by the end of the podcast.
Okie dokie.
This isn't a bit.
Well, anyways, Matt had to go take care of something, so now it is me and Bean to talk about whatever we want to talk about. It's funny because Matt messaged the group chat saying that after we got done with talking about all the coaches getting fired in college football, that he wanted to talk about college basketball. And I'm very surprised that he didn't stay on to talk about how his Indiana Hoosiers looked against Marion. I know it's a exhibition game against Marion, but still, they had a very lopsided victory, a lot to look forward to. But I'm going to be completely honest. We have some very marquee college basketball exhibition games going on. None that I am looking forward to more than Duke versus Tennessee on October 26th. I think that could be a very good matchup. And I'm very intrigued to see how Nate Ament looks in that game because if you follow the podcast, you'll know that I am not the highest on Nate Ament. I have once said that he is one of the more talented prospects in this class. He has all the ceiling in the world, but he lacks that tenacity. I think that separates the good players from the great players. It's going to be very interesting to see how he fits in that Rick Barnes system. Is he going to be able to use him like he used his star players of the past? Is he going to have like a Dalton Connect role? Is he going to have like a Chaz Lanier role? Or is he going to struggle to find his footing in his freshman year? I'm very interested to see it. And also, while we're talking about Duke basketball, because I know there's been a tweet that's been going around social media, and I think it's absolutely hilarious how many people actually believed it. So supposedly there is a parody account on Twitter that says that Duke played a secret scrimmage against DePaul and lost big time. And one of my favorite responses to this is one of the Duke beat writers that I follow, Zion O, tweeted that DePaul couldn't beat a Duke team and he basically just names 5 infamous walk-ons that have come through the program over the last several years. And yeah, I mean, come on, guys. There's no way you don't, if that really happened, do you understand that would probably be a lead ESPN story? That would be a lead talking point on every major network. Oh, just in time, because you know what I just was talking about, Matt?
I could hear you a little bit outside. Were you talking about exhibition games involving teams that may or may not have been mentioned?
Yes. Yeah, apparently there's a
Well,
tweet going around about how Duke lost to DePaul in a secret scrimmage.
I always love those secret scrimmage tweets because nobody actually knows what the hell happened.
Well, here's the thing, like of the secret scrimmages that Duke has played, we do know what happened. I mean, there's box scores and everything, but there's nothing on this DePaul, which I mean, come on, that wasn't believable at all.
It was a super secret scrimmage. Okay, it's even beyond what we can understand.
Are we sure it wasn't Duke's ball boys against like DePaul? Because I feel like that would be a more accurate score.
Dude, those manager games get competitive. I remember there was a whole scandal about them last year.
Oh my gosh. Who is the one manager that went viral for like throwing down windmills and East Bays like in
Oh,
layup lines? Yeah,
I
you know
should
what I'm
remember.
talking about?
Yeah, I have forgotten that, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was an
I'm
exhibition
sorry I
against
had to.
Duke. Yeah, and like
Yeah.
the Cameron Crazies are talking to the ball guy of all time, and he just throws up a windmill like in the layup lines. We're like, oh, okay, maybe give that
Oh,
guy
he's
a
serious
scholarship.
now. And I am sorry about that departure. A golf cart tumped over in my front lawn with somebody on it. So I went out and checked on them to make sure they were okay. It's a dude who lives down the street from me. I just saw look down and you're just and then the golf cart falls over. So I went up to check on him.
I low key. I'm not gonna lie. I'm glad everyone's okay, but I low key Matt was just like I thought Matt was just kind of dipping out as a joke because of what was said on the last.
Oh no, 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 no! I just had to go check on that guy because I was like, oh, well, that go helped him get it back up real quick. That was something else. I'll tell you
Matt
what.
gets another gold star.
I'm a good noodle.
He is a good noodle. In case that's why he covered his mouth when he dropped an f bomb.
Yeah, I went. Oh, I'm a naughty boy. I'm a naughty boy. Yeah, we're officially approaching college basketball season with the charity scrimmages and the secret scrimmages. So this is a friendly reminder that scrimmages are just scrimmages, folks. No coaches are just going to see what they've got and run it out there. Take this stuff with a grain of salt. Be happy if you win. Don't be depressed if you lose.
Right, because it doesn't count against your record. But as always, real quick, like and subscribe to Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channels to get the latest updates we have on new content coming out. Be sure to follow the social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Threads. It's at Less is More Sports. Be sure to follow the side quest on TikTok. That's at BeansDad018. And for the rest of the time, yes, I'm going to branch off of what Matt just said because I remember a few years ago where Syracuse – back when Jim Boeheim was there, lost in an exhibition game to a smaller school. This was the year they had Wesley Johnson. They were really good. And they lost to a smaller school, but they also went on to be very good that year. So exhibition losses are not the end of the world.
Unless you're Indiana. If that happens, run from your house screaming. Just run.
I
Run
as
away.
as an also Texas